Well, today I want to present one of my PhD chapters. I am a PhD student here in UK at the University of East Anglia. And this chapter talks about the preference of local communities on restoration in the Colombian Caribbean. And this is a work that I developed jointly with INVEMAR, the Marine and Coastal Research Institute in Colombia. So, well, my motivation is basically that mangroves are very important for climate change and biodiversity preservation, but there has been a really increased degradation in mangroves areas. So there is also this motivation for restore the areas that have been lost. But there has been proven that restoration initiatives are more successful with communities' involvement because they have this traditional knowledge. They are highly dependent on these ecosystems, as over 80% of the small-scale fisheries rely on mangroves. And they also are very important in the stages after the restoration happens, because they have this role in safeguarding the ecosystems. So therefore, it's very important to identify the community's motivation to support the restoration efforts. Well, in the literature, this has been studied. So far, there have been identified some socioeconomic characteristics like gender, income, occupation, and among others, as important determinants on the motivation of communities to participate, or determinants to participate in restoration programs. But also some attitudes are important, some attitudes that they have regarding certain topics, for instance, climate change, if they care or not care about climate change, what they think about climate change, if this is something that worries them, they will be more keen to participate in restoration activities. Also, there has been a study that different groups have different preferences for ecosystem services from mangrove restoration. For instance, fishermen and farmers would have a different preference for different ecosystems in mangroves, and therefore different motivation to support mangrove restoration processes. So in my research, I want to identify those factors that explains individual preferences for restoration in the Colombian Caribbean context, and also taking into account that in this area that I will present, we have history, like there has been restoration in the past. So it's not like we are going to start a restore, but it has been like a process going on. And also how heterogeneous are these preferences for mangroves in Colombia. For instance, comparing the urban population versus rural population. So the study area, it's a coastal lagoon in the Colombian Caribbean in the north of the country. And it's Ciénaga Grande, Santa Marta. Maybe some of you know about this area, which has sort of 35,000 hectares of mangrove by 2019 and approximately 1,200 fishermen. There has been a lot of drivers for this area, like loss of connectivity with marine and river water, basically due to the roads. As you can see in the map, there has been road built around this area, and they have interfered with the hydrological connectivity, overfishing, pollution, changes in land use, and erosion. But there has been also a lot of environmental monitoring going on. So we have information about fisheries, mangroves extension, water quality, and birds. We have 2 national marine protected areas, but we also have the open access area where fishermen or other users can go without restrictions. And there have been these environmental initiatives like the restoration program I just talked about. And we have different size of population. Sorry, is there a question? They have different size of population. So we have big cities close to nearly 1 million inhabitants, or smaller cities of 500,000 of inhabitants. Also rural areas with just 3,000 inhabitants to 34,000 inhabitants. So this area has been, for this area, there has been a process of restoration already. So this process started in the 90s, but it has shown ambiguous results. If you can see in the map of this paper by Rodriguez, there has been improvement in some areas, but also we have lost mangrove area in other parts of the big area of Ciénaga Grande, Santa Marta. There have been low involvement of local community or other stakeholders. This has been mainly done by institutions. And there has been variation in the recovery of mangrove covers. Then we wanted to test with people if they would prefer a new and more integrated restoration program or just leave things as they are so far. And that is where we, as environmental economists, enter to research this kind of topics. So we can see there is mostly recovery in these areas where the activities have been concentrated. So because mangroves offer different type of ecosystem services, we try to also investigate the trade-offs between these ecosystem services in terms of what people prefer or what people prioritize or what is more important for them. And this way, we use this economic methodology called choice experiments, where we present to people alternatives of outcomes for restoration processes in the future, and we use these attributes. So we, in this case, use 3 environmental attributes, which are changes in biodiversity of birds, changes in mangrove cover, and changes in annual catch of fish. But we also link a sort of value or contribution that people can make to support these changes or improvement in the restoration process that we saw has ambiguous results so far. But they also have so we present 2 alternatives or 2 scenarios, possible scenarios, and then we present a option to just get out of these possibilities and just stay with the current situation. And of course, they are not paying anything right now. But we also extend this because we were sampling in populations that are very deprived and low income. We try to show the people to the 2 possibilities. They could pay, but they could also contribute with voluntary work. So time in this case. So that's what you see the difference in the two cards. So we have money for one side and also time for other side on voluntary work in restoration activities. So we apply our survey in these sites, kind of distributed in the big areas. So we have 2 big cities and rural areas in the mangrove, like living really close to mangroves, and another one a little bit farther than the other ones. So basically our sample was mostly of people living inside of mangroves in rural areas. Sorry. But we also distributed the sample in urban areas that are far away from mangroves, also urban areas that are close to mangroves, and rural areas that are far of mangroves. And of course, the main activity in mangroves is fisheries. Most of the sample had secondary schooling. The income, this is a sample of really low income people, and well, mostly men. Well, we also asked for perception about the changes in mangroves. So in general, people perceive a positive change in mangroves since the restoration program started. And they also report the main area or the main zone that they have contact with. And finally, some general results from our regression. Well, basically, people is more keen to do voluntary work than pay like a money contribution. And this can be linked, well, this is also supported by the literature, but this also can be linked to the fact that this sample or this region is composed by communities with really low income. So they would also prefer to contribute by doing some voluntary work. In terms of the factors that influence these choices, when we divide our analysis between the monetary payment vehicle, this is the contribution in money, and voluntary work contribution. So basically for both of these instruments, biodiversity didn't have any significant effect over the choices of a alternative restoration program. And I mean, compared to the other ecosystem services or environmental attributes we include in the experiment. And by the contrary, fisheries and mangroves had a significant effect over the choices. So people would prefer restoration scenarios which outcomes would be enhanced fisheries and mangrove areas. Regarding the other characteristics of people, well, in average, if we don't take account anything else, on average, when we ask people to pay with money, people would prefer not to do it and just stay in the current situation. And again, this could be linked with the income restriction. But when we ask them to volunteer, they will be more willing to move forward to a better restoration program. And finally, well, the location was also significant, important in the decisions that people make. Basically, people living closer to mangroves are more willing to contribute or change or improve the restoration program than people living farther from mangroves. And by the end, well, we find that the perception in terms of the knowledge they have of the restoration process and the perception that there has been a negative change. I mean, people that think that there has been a negative change, they would like to improve it and improve the restoration process. And also people that know about what a restoration activity is. So knowledge and perception are also very important for this. Well, as final considerations, future restoration programs must consider the direct involvement of beneficiaries depending on their location with respect to mangroves. The communication of restoration activities and the results are key to the beneficiaries' willingness to contribute. And finally, it is very important to link people's perceptions with ecological indicators on restoration outputs. Thank you very much.